Welcome back. Namibia's fiscal roadmap for the year ahead took center stage yesterday when Minister of Finance Erika Shafuda tabled the national budget in the National Assembly yesterday, outlining government's spending priorities, revenue measures, economic outlook and ongoing financial pressures and development demands. Now, Chantel Hasselman, the country's senior partner at PwC Namibia, now joins us this morning to share expert insights on whether the budget strikes the right balance between economic growth and fiscal discipline, what it signals to the private sector, and how ordinary Namibians may feel its impact in the months ahead. Chantel, good morning. Thank you so much for making time to join us this morning.
Good morning. Good morning to the viewers, and thanks for having me.
Now, Chantel, yesterday we saw the Minister of Finance table the national budget. That is, from your perspective, what are the most significant highlights that you could pick out?
So the budget was presented to us under the theme of people, productivity and prudence, giving a strong indication that it is about stability and discipline. A few things that stood out will be that it is a people-focused budget with about 54.3 billion, which is 62% of total budget allocations that was denoted for social sectors. Then alongside that, education earmarked to get 28 billion, which is inclusive of a 2.8 billion for the much talked about subsidized tertiary education. So these are all significant allocations. Secondly, the Honourable Minister was very clear that it's a prudent budget, although it's shaped by our limited fiscal space and higher debt levels. Signalling it's about prioritizing and not per se expensive spending.
Now, Chantel, in terms of the overall direction of the budget, especially when it comes to economic growth, fiscal sustainability and debt management, what were some of the signals that you got from the minister?
I would describe the direction as careful but responsible. So we had economic growth projected to come in at around 3.1% for 2026, which is it's modest but realistic. And then at the same time, the balancing act also came through of government trying to narrow the budget deficit. We do expect that to improve from around 6.6% of GDP to 5.5%. So the focus is on stabilizing public finances and managing national debt levels while laying the groundwork for growth rather than an immediate short-term stimulus.
Are there any implications that you got from the budget specifically for the private sector and perhaps investor confidence, especially those who are operating in Namibia or thinking about operating in Namibia?
Yes, so I think there's two sides to this. On the positive side, biggest signal coming out is stability and no surprises. So with the projected or budgeted revenue of 89.8 billion, what's important there is within that aspiration or budget, there's no sudden tax hikes or dramatic policy shifts, which does help with investor confidence. However, on the spending side, investors will be watching implementation closely, particularly around the development budget. And as mentioned, I think at least the past 2 to 3 years, the uncertainty around policy development and having policy clarity is still with us. There's no detailed guidance on oil and gas taxation or the final shape and the timelines of special economic zone entities. So those are typical entities that did enjoy significant tax incentives. And with the sunset date or clause that kicked in for our former EPZ entities. So this lack of clarity could delay investment decisions in sectors that are meant to drive future growth. And that is definitely a focus area, should remain a focus area for the country and policymakers.
Now, Chantel, we know also the issue of the cost of living that seems to be skyrocketing. Does this budget provide meaningful relief for households at the moment? We know that there was no tax increases.
Yes, so I think you answered that one with the last statement. So that just in no increase is already a relief. But I can add to that. In terms of household relief, there is an expectation that income tax brackets to be adjusted to counter inflation. And that's we can already mentioned last year to expect those adjustments over a 2-year period. Adding to that is the $100 monthly increase in the old age pension. And then, rather than targeted relief, more broad-based relief in the form of $1.7 billion allocated for public sector salary adjustments. And also the last with mention would be just the free tertiary education, where this also indirectly aids households which would have otherwise had to budget on that spending priorities. Okay. So while the budget softens the impact, many households will still feel the pinch in day-to-day or monthly expenses because there is external factors that influence us in terms of fuel, food, or transport costs, for example.
Indeed. Now, you already mentioned that the social sector was one of the biggest winners in terms of this budget. Specifically, perhaps, which sectors may face constraints going forward? There is a strong focus in terms of the development budget, where that budget remains relatively constrained at around $6.5 billion. So the message is with the stronger allocations towards social sectors to protect core services for now, and then with the hope of growing capacity gradually through the vision within the development budget. Now, Chantel, we're running out of time, but we do know that revenue collection is an issue. We know NAMRA has revised its revenue collection. It's projected now to be $89.8 billion. And from a job perspective, especially looking at job creation, does this budget also possibly stimulate opportunities for employment? We know the correctional service, security cluster, health, as well as the Ministry of Education is expected to recruit. We saw allocations being made in the budget. And do we expect that these recruitment opportunities perhaps will also drive economic growth that might just lead to some possible economic growth that we'll see for the country as a whole? Our take is that the job creation is supported more indirectly than directly. So as you rightfully say, there's announced spending on education, housing, agriculture, and infrastructure. And then also to mention past programs that already has momentum on creating jobs. So all of this, the collective will help over time, but the budget does not single out or include large new job creation schemes. So ultimate sustainable employment will depend on whether public spending successfully crowds in private sector investment, particularly for the Namibian youth. Finally, what can the key indicators should Namibians watch out for over the coming months to determine whether this budget will achieve its intended outcomes? And we know the issue of the ability for us to spend and the headlines that normally come with us returning money to the fiscus. Will things be different this time around? Well, I would say if we have a top-down approach, that the spending is afforded through the means of collecting budgeted tax revenue. So, key indicator to watch would be whether revenue targets are actually met, especially where there is no new taxes being introduced. So, going forward, due dates under our current law provisions is, for example, to our viewers, today is the last day for filing February 26 provisional tax returns. So that's just one small example, but that is under the revenue collection cycle.
how targets of this sort are met to be practical around it. So having high tax morale and good tax administration and enforcement, again, from the revenue agency side, is vital. Another key indicator would be to whether the deficit and the debt aspiration in containing that and how close we can come to that as a country to also reduce our exposure in terms of the cost of financing the debt. So the direction is sensible. The biggest challenge will be execution and sustaining growth. That will be the foundations for a resilient economy.
Well, thank you so much, Chantel, for making time to speak to us this morning.
Thanks for having me.